Did you know that if your cargo was sacrificed in order to save the whole ship, it's still going to be covered? That's right, and we're going to talk about these coverages under the Institute cargo clauses today. What's up? You're watching Tito Talks non-life insurance discussions. Once again with me, your favorite Tito Miguel, who loves to make non-life insurance discussions easier to understand for both agents and clients. Magandang Friday po sa ating lahat. TGI Friday. I hope you guys are ready for the weekend. I know I am. And for today, before we cap off the work week and send you on into the weekend, we've got just one more marine insurance lesson to talk about before we jump on into a new topic next week. And this is in response to our previous video on things you need to know about the truck risk clause. Now, from land, we're going to go to the sea and talk about the Institute cargo clauses. And yes, our answer to the previous question, if in case you didn't catch that, I'm gonna post it right here. If your cargo gets sacrificed in order to save the whole ship, will it be covered under insurance? And the answer to that question is yes. This type of coverage is known as general average sacrifice, and it is one of many coverages that the insurance that the Institute cargo clauses can cater to. Now, as we explained in a previous video, otherwise known as the Introduction to Marine Insurance, that's going to be linked right here up as well. You can also check the playlist in the description. One of the types of insurance is inter-island and ocean marine insurance. And when you're dealing with cargo that is being transported via ship, you are going to need the Institute cargo clauses as part of your policy, otherwise known as ICC. And as we enumerated last time, the Institute cargo clauses are divided up into three particular types. Thankfully, they are alphabetized. ICC A, ICC B, and ICC C. And today, we're going to go into slightly more detail in what each and every one of them does. And let's start with what's covered under ICC C. Now, ICC C is considered the lowest on the hierarchy, therefore it will have the most basic coverages, the bare minimum. And when we say bare minimum, although they are not as good as ICC A, they're still pretty much doable in most cases. And you'll be very surprised to know that the sacrifice panel that we talked about earlier in the intro is already part of ICC C, so you don't have to worry about getting that in any particular type of package. Now let's go over what's covered in each of them, shall we? Now, under ICC C, you've got coverage from fire and explosion, getting stranded, grounded, sunk, or capsized. And when you say capsized, that's when the ship turns over on itself. Also, you get coverage from collision and contact with other objects, as long as the object is not water. Also, you get coverage from discharges of cargo at the port of distress. Now, for beginners in insurance or in marine insurance, you may be confused. What do you mean when you say discharge at the discharge of cargo at port of distress? Well, this means someone messed up. And it means someone's got a really, really big problem with the cargo. The cargo encountered a really, really big problem on its way to its destination. When you have to discharge your cargo at a port of distress, it could mean one of several things. Either number one, when the cargo was delivered, the receiver did not want the cargo anymore, either because the prices have dropped, the market has changed, and it would be more expensive to accept the packages rather than to default on the delivery or to default on the insurance. So that's an example of distressed cargo. Also, there could be cases wherein the ship could not dock at the necessary port because of bad weather, because of other weather factors, which could prevent the boat from docking. And because of that, since the boat cannot dock, it would have to continue on its journey to the next port of destination, especially if it's a multi-ported or a multi-station trip. yung marami pong pinagpaparadahan, marami pong stop. So, if the ship skips one because of bad weather, then it's stuck with cargo that it should have dropped off at a previous port. Now, what do ships usually do with that cargo? It gets tossed out, especially when the ship is trying to make room for new cargo that it will be receiving when it arrives at the next destination. And these are just two of many instances when your client could end up with what they call as distressed cargo. Can cargo become stressed? Not exactly, but it's used to describe what happens to cargo that has undergone such problems. It couldn't be dropped off because of bad weather. It wouldn't be accepted by the receiver because of certain market conditions, so on and so forth. So what happens when these cargoes come in? They get discharged because of distress. Now, also, as we mentioned earlier, you also have coverage from general average sacrifice. What does general average sacrifice mean? Excellent question, Miguel. When you have general average sacrifice, that means the crew of the ship was forced to make an intentional discharge of the cargo. Initya, tinapon yung cargo because of underlying circumstances, i.e. pwedeng lumubog yung barko if the cargo was not discharged. Malas mo kung napakabigat ng cargo mo. That's probably the first one to go. But then, when this thing happens, and if you do have ICC C, don't worry. That's going to be covered. Moving on up the ladder, you've got ICC B. Now, as mentioned earlier, ICC B can do everything that ICC C can do, plus a little bit more. Dito na po papasok ang ating acts of nature, which involves earthquakes, volcanoes, and lightnings. Even strong waves that could wash your cargo overboard. And of course, you can also get coverage, or ICCB also provides coverage for butterfingers. What do I mean when I say butterfingers? This is for cargo that may be mishandled, dropped into the sea while the cargo is being loaded or unloaded. Pag nadulas po sa kamay ng mga kargador ang cargo, yes, it can be covered under ICCB as well. And then finally, you've got ICC A. And ICC A is considered an all-risk type of coverage, meaning everything under the sun besides what ICC B and ICC C can do is already covered under ICC A. Plus, a little bit more. What else can happen besides ICC B and ICC C coverages? Excellent question, Miguel. Well, you've got things such as pirates, which could commit theft or pilferage of the cargo. Also, cargo could sustain damage while being transported via hooks, wherein the cargo could sustain hook damage. Also, you may have problems with cross-contamination of certain cargo when it's placed beside other types of cargo. So that's also known as contamination. Also, you can get coverages from faulty stowages and mishandling of the cargo in itself. These are just a few of the many things that ICC A can cover, which makes it probably the best type of coverage, but certainly not the cheapest. And with that being said, let's get on to our force of habit. Didn't mean to say word for the day. I meant to say question of the day. And this one's really interesting, and we're going to answer that in the next marine insurance video. Can you insure a shipment of ice from melting? Very interesting, right? Would you be able to cover a shipment of ice from melting even if you bought ICC A? Assuming that budget is not a problem and you could afford to get ICC A and you have a shipment of ice, can it be insured for melting, or would it be covered if it melted during the trip? And we're going to answer that question next time. Thank you so much for tuning in today once again to another session of Tito Talks. Once again, this is your Tito Miguel, always saying I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.